Welcome back to the Wrestling Club podcast. I'm on my third episode. This is the final episode of me bringing you up to date on my story and what I have walked through for the last 3-ish years. Today, I'm going to be talking about, well, it's the same day, guys. I'm wearing the same outfit, okay? But on this new day that you get to hear about it, I'm going to talk about the things that I've learned and where I sit with this now. Thank you for joining me for my pity party over the last 2 episodes. I hope that this episode just encourages you that healing is possible and prove to you that I have seen Jesus work in my life and in my body, which we will talk about that one day. There was a day that I was talking to my therapist who has obviously, Miss Anita, she's been a huge part of helping me navigate this whole time in my life. I think I was talking to her about how I feel bad for people who seem stuck in infertility, people who respond to it differently than how I did. Because one thing that was really important to me as I was struggling was still showing up, like still living my life, still hanging out with my friends, going to meet their babies, going to their baby showers. I didn't want to just stop my life, stop living. But there are people who have a really hard time with some of those elements. And I told her, I was like, I've seen some people struggle with this for a lot longer than me. And I feel bad because I feel like they're not moving through it. They're just stuck in it. They are still face down in the puddle. And I am standing up now. And she asked me, how do you think that you got here? And the answer that I gave her was, I just wasn't okay with Jesus not being enough. I had to get to this place. I had to keep pressing in. I had to keep trying to find healing until I found it, and not escaping from what was real, not hiding from my friends forever, although I did hide things for so long. And I feel bad. I really do understand. Well, I don't know if I understand, but I realize that it was hurtful to people and it's not fair to them. But it's what happened. And so we're moving on from it, and we're reconciling on the other side of it. You know, we just do the best that we can sometimes. But I do believe that it was my insistence that I'm not going to stay here that helped me at least move towards healing. There are definitely ups and downs. Like, there are still hard days. The other day, me and Tyler were having a conversation because I was throwing another pity party, a recent pity party, where I was like, all the people that we have prayed for, all my friends who sat across from me and said, me too. I want to have a baby too. I've been struggling with this for years too. I know how hard Mother's Day is. I know what it's like. They have all gotten pregnant at this point. And I was feeling very alone. And I told Tyler, and he was like, wait, really? That's awesome. And I was like, sir, what are you talking about? And he was like, that gives us so much hope. Like, how many people do you know that for real, they want to have a kid and they never do? So I love that that sweet man, he had such a different perspective than I did. But there are hard days when I feel very isolated and left out, when I feel like the Lord doesn't care about me. But I have learned so much about his character, and when I think about myself in 2023 or 2024 and Tyler at those times, we are such different people, and I'm very grateful for this time that the Lord has spent preparing us. I am grateful I remember thinking, I cannot imagine ever appreciating going through this. And it's just real that I know the Lord in a way that I simply would not. Tyler knows the Lord in a way that he would not if we had not been forced to just sit and seek and be healed and come to terms with what the purpose of life really is. the hardest part for me now is not being able to be a part of what my friends are doing. The example that I gave Tyler when I was trying to help him understand, because he loves boats and he loves having a boat. I was like, imagine all of your friends get the exact boat that you want at the same time, and they just go out on their boats together, and you just have to watch them do that. And he's like, well, I'll just go with them. I'm like, okay, that is not the point of the analogy. But it is real that my friends, especially when their babies were newborns, what they want to do is be with their baby. And that is beautiful. And that's exactly what I'm going to want to do. But I want to hang out with my friends. And I love being with my friends when they're with their kids. And I love being with my friends' kids. I love watching them grow and learn and change. But there are things that I have been excluded from because I don't have a kid to bring along. While I do get invited to participate in some things, when someone wants to have a play date, they're not calling me. When someone wants to find another mom to do like a mommy and me thing with, they're not calling me. And I'm not saying that for people to feel bad for me. That's just one of the hardest things now. And I think about when I was in college, remember me and my friends used to talk about raising kids together all the time and how much fun it would be and the outfits we would put them in and the things we would take them to do and going on vacations together and how we would discipline them and all the things that we would do as parents. And I'm missing the thing that allows me to live out that dream with my friends. And there's nothing either of us can do about it. They're not trying to exclude me. I'm not excluding myself. There's simply not anything I can do about it. I saw something on Instagram one time that said infertility is like standing outside in the snow, watching a party go on inside of a house and not being invited in. And that just felt so relatable. And there was a clip of on Home Alone with Kevin standing outside in the snow watching a family, when his family was gone, have a Christmas party inside. And I was like, yeah, that's just not the best feeling. It really makes me face my sensitivity to rejection and being excluded all the time. It's hard, but it's part of the healing process that I've been on. The other thing that I get in my head about is timelines and not wanting to feel like I'm behind. And I always call it getting lapped when people have multiple kids in the time that I've wanted to have a kid. It's just one of my least favorite feelings in the whole world. But it was just messy to continue to celebrate with people who are at this point just building or maybe even completing their families and being like, okay, that's beautiful. And wondering what it is that the Lord has for my life, that this thing that he calls good can also fit into it. One of my friends I should have probably just used names for it to be less confusing, but the friend who apologized to me for telling me that she was pregnant, when she told me that she was pregnant with her second baby, it was a really healing moment in our friendship because first of all, I love her so much because she is sensitive to people who maybe are wanting to have a kid and haven't, and I can tell that she's hesitant to make a big deal about it and make it into this big celebration because she's sensitive to other people, which is not fair to her. Like, this is a really exciting thing for your family and you should celebrate it and be excited about it and not feel like you have to tiptoe around it. And this time when she told me that she was pregnant, especially because it was her second baby, I asked her if I could come to some of her appointments with her. And I was able to go with her for her glucose tests because you got to sit in there for a long time, and she had to do 2 of them. So that was really fun. And I was worried about what it would be like to be in that same exact building where I had the ultrasounds that I had at the beginning of my journey, but I know the Lord has healed me because I didn't shed a single tear. I didn't have anxiety like driving to the building or the days leading up to the appointment. So there is clear evidence to me and in me that the Lord really has like very, what's the word? Like neatly sewn up my scars. And they're not sensitive anymore. Some of them still are. Like whenever there are certain times that grief, I still always hesitate to call it that because it just feels really silly to call it grief when I have not lost anything. I don't have anything to show for the thing that I've lost, but people tell me that it's grief, so I will call it that. But there are times when it hits me out of nowhere, but not consistently. Like in 2024 for my birthday, I woke up immediately crying. I did not want to be 27. I did not want to acknowledge that a year of life had passed, and it did not bring the thing that I wanted. And this is literally the last time I ate at Taco Bell. Me and my husband went to Taco Bell on my birthday because I was throwing myself such a big pity party that I didn't even want to decide what to eat on my own birthday. And I was crying in Taco Bell, just so upset at the fact that time was passing. And I've only had one birthday since then, but I don't feel any sense of dread about my birthday coming this year. Who knows what will happen when August comes around. But Mother's Days in the past were not difficult at all. Like the first Mother's Day that this happened, I led worship at church. I was there all up in the middle of it. We had a special song that was sang by one of my friends who was pregnant. It was hard, but it wasn't anything that I couldn't handle. Last year, I think it was last year, when me and Emily sang the special, it was like this little twangy country special Mother's Day song that we sang together. It was most difficult in the preparation, but the day of Mother's Day was fine and easy to celebrate. But for whatever reason this year, Mother's Day has been on my mind for weeks now, and I know that I can just tell there's like something building up about it. And for whatever reason, this marker of time, this like date passing feels really hard, and I'm learning to practice the things that I have learned about dealing with grief. Sometimes I think that I don't need those skills anymore because I guess because I'm not triggered as often as I used to be, but I am revisiting my skills of learning how to tell what I need and not being afraid to ask for it. For the longest time, when grief was hitting me often, I really identified with the concept of suffering and found comfort in knowing that Jesus suffered, obviously not through infertility. That's probably like the one grief that Jesus doesn't physically know. But I found a lot of comfort in that. The quotes about suffering and scripture about suffering and advice from people, it always resonated so much. But the Lord really strengthened me, and I don't identify with suffering a lot. People sometimes, probably just trying to make sure I'm not in denial, they remind me that this really, similar to that proverb in Proverbs 30 that I talked about in another episode, like, this is a form of suffering, and this is a real emptiness that you cannot control on your own, and it doesn't just go away. But I don't feel like suffering is as relatable, and it's not the word that I would use to describe how I feel about my life anymore. I still have moments of doubt and discouragement, but I really do see every month as a new opportunity to be hopeful for the thing that my heart desires, and believing that it is like I can trust myself to desire the things that the Lord wants for me. Because for the longest time, I just wanted to only desire his will so that I could deny the things that my heart desired, if that made sense. It was like, if I just desire his will, then I won't have any pain and I'll just follow the path of Jesus. But that doesn't seem to be how it's working. There was a point in time, I think it was either really, it was actually, it was the first November that I had tried to get pregnant, and me and Tyler ran a 5K on Thanksgiving. I don't know why we did that. We were feeling ambitious, but as I was training for it, I remember thinking, I got to go ahead and get this over with, because once I have kids, it's probably going to be hard to accomplish this goal. So like, let me check this one last thing off before I become a mom. So we ran a 5K, and as I was training for it, because I'm not one of those people that can just get up and run a 5K. As I was training for it, I hated it and I dreaded it every time I drove out to the place where I would run. And one day it hit me, what if I just enjoyed the run? What if I, instead of counting down the miles and the minutes until I get back to the country club, what if I just like running and I choose to enjoy the process, even if it isn't my favorite thing physically? And that really stuck with me as I endured a different type of process. Like, what if I just learned to live in this contentment with Jesus? It might not feel like satisfaction all the time, but like, can I have this deep contentment in Jesus? There's a song by Abby Gamboa called Consider Him, where she says in the bridge that we're not made to sprint, it's a pilgrimage. And part of that is just funny to me because I like picture myself wearing a pilgrim outfit, but this really is the whole point. The pilgrimage is this is what it's all about, following Jesus. When I have a baby one day, like, there will be something else. I'll want something else. I'll be annoyed by something else. I'll be heartbroken over something else. I'll grieve something else. The resolution is not for me to get my way. I actually remember telling Miss Anita one time, I honestly, and I probably didn't really mean this because I've always really wanted a baby, but kind of confessing to her, it probably wouldn't be good for the Lord to give me what I want right now, because there's obviously something wrong with my heart. And I don't want to be a parent. I don't want to go into parenthood with this heart. I need to be healed. And the Lord has worked so much in me. I really am grateful. And there was a day when I could not believe that I would ever say that. So I have been really honest about my thoughts on all of this and how I feel about stuff. And I know, like I said, the things I've done to my friends have been out of protection over myself. I know they've been hurtful. There are things that I say, and I'm honest with a lot of people. I know they're hard to hear, and I'm not saying them in this public space to make people feel bad. I'm saying this for the people who have those same thoughts and feelings, who I hope that they don't feel alone anymore, and that it's okay to say, wait, what is the point of my life? Do I actually want to live if I can't be a mom? Like, don't be afraid of those things. Say what comes to your head. Say what's on your heart and bring that to the Lord and see what he can do with it. See how he can heal you when you acknowledge the wounds that you have. And I like to believe that my honesty helps build more authentic relationships, and that really has been my experience with the people that I'm close to in my life. But I'm excited for some of them to come share their part of my story, come share their own stories, and encourage people in the ways that they've also wrestled with God, whether it was because of me or because of other things that have gone on in their life. So thank you for listening. I'm sure I'll have more little things to fill in the gaps along the way, and I am definitely planning on continuing to use this space to show the things that the Lord is teaching me. So I hope that you find it edifying. and encouraging. I'll see you next time.